Hey guys, welcome back to another one. Today we are back in Beeswarm Simulator. Now before we start the video, please consider subscribing to the channel, as these videos take a lot of effort to put out. But anyways, let's get straight to the video. As you can see, we have the NATRO macro window open right here, and we are going to be going into the Gather tab. So as you'll notice, whenever you first go in here, you can set multiple fields. So like if we were to set it to bamboo, it would automatically set these settings. While they're not necessarily the best, they work well, they're efficient, but with a little bit of tweaking, they could be a lot better. For example, if we switch it to pepper, these settings are alright, but they could be better. What I normally do, I'll set this to 25 minutes and put this on, field drift compensation. That makes it so that way it will, here's an example, it'll put on a sprinkler, it'll do the pattern, then it'll reset its position whenever it locates the sprinkler, so we don't drift off the field. And I'll set the shape to elol, which is arguably one of the best shapes to grind with. But as you can see, you are able to set multiple fields here. So you could have it gather at clover for 15 minutes, then rotate to dandelion and farm there for 15 minutes and rotate back. Now these are optional, you can set it to none and only have it grind in one field, so that way it just makes it easier for you. Also, field drift compensation is a bit buggy and does not really work well if you do not have Supreme Saturator. So try to avoid using that feature, and I'd recommend sticking with default settings for most fields until you get Supreme Saturator. Now let's get into the patterns. Let's start off with the snake pattern, which is, let's see, right here. So I'm just going to actually set it to pepper and snake real quick. Now I will put an image on screen showing what that looks like, the pattern of snake is. So as you can see from the picture, length adjusts the left and right movements, make them larger. And then the width changes the number of loops away from the saturator, or aka your sprinkler. So now I will show you, hopefully you guys cannot hear the dog in the background, but now I will show you the pepper field with the snake shape, length of medium, width of 5, and we are going to be starting in the center of the field. I'm also going to tick field drift compensation. Now let's see how it looks. Now we're just placing my sprinkler, and now it will start doing the snake pattern with the settings are set. And soon it should start going backwards and relocating on top of the sprinkler just to adjust for the field compensation. Yep, now it's going back. And as it reaches the sprinkler, it should stop for like a second just to make sure it's like on the sprinkler. Yep, just there for like a frame. And now it's going to keep on going. Next, we are going to be going over the square pattern. Now I will put up an image of the squares pattern and its stats. Now if you were to change the length, it would adjust all sides of the shape. Now if you were to change the width, it would change the size of the repetitions and how many repetitions it does. Now as you can see on the graph, there is no pattern backwards because it all goes in the square and then it'll meet up while going the exact same route. It doesn't really go backwards, it goes straight forwards and comes back. So now we are going to start the macro and see how it looks. Now it will place the sprinkler, and then now as very clearly it is doing a square pattern. Out of everything, I would recommend elol pattern. We'll get into that very shortly. Our next pattern will be the diamonds pattern. So I will put a screenshot on screen now of what that looks like. Now the actual stats of it are essentially the exact same as the square, except it's more diagonal than actually straight, as you can clearly see in the picture. So now let's test it out and see what it looks like. Now it is going up. It will place the sprinkler down right in the middle of the field. Now it is doing diamonds, as shown in the screenshot from earlier. Our next pattern will be typewriter. I will now put a picture of what typewriter looks like on screen. So as you can see, length adjusts the forward and backward movements of the shape. And width changes the number of loops away from the saturator or your sprinkler. So we will now do Typewriter with the settings shown on screen right here on the macro. So let's start it. So as you can see, displacing the sprinkler. Now doing Typewriter pattern from the screenshot. Now our next pattern is lines. I'll put it up on screen right now. So length adjusts the forward and backwards movements, while width changes the amount of loops away from the saturator or the sprinkler. So now we will test out the lines feature. So let's go do that real quick. So now you can visually see the pattern is just doing the pattern, harvesting in lines. Kind of similar to Typewriter, except very slightly different instead of. Now this next one is called Aaron. Correct me if I'm pronouncing that wrong. This one is a bit confusing. I'm putting a screenshot of it on screen now. It's like a circle, but with like an infinity symbol inside of it, which is kind of weird. And the length determines the size of the circle and infinity symbol. And then width changes the number of repetitions between aligning. So let's try this out. I'm actually kind of curious to see what this looks like in game. So we are going to do the following settings on screen. Alright, let's see what this looks like. Just placing down the sprinkler. Doing infinity symbol. Now it's doing circles. Bigger infinity symbol. Not quite sure how this one works, but you guys can see on screen. Seems to be working. And it has fallen off the field. I believe I may have set the width and length maybe too large, but that is the Aaron pattern. Now our next pattern is called X snake. I am now putting the screenshot up on screen. If you change the length, that will adjust the size of all movements with the pattern. And if you change the width, that changes the amount of loops between it recalibrates the sprinkler location and such. So now let's try it and see how it looks. It is now planting down the sprinkler, and it is now doing the X-snake pattern. It seems like a fairly effective pattern. Now our final pattern is called corner X-snake, which looks very similar to normal X-snake, except I'm pretty sure it's built to do it in corners of the fields. So then it'll go to corner to recalibrate rather than using field drift compensation. So for that, I will be using a different field for this test. I will be using pumpkin patch field. I will be putting the image for on screen now. So now we are going to start it with the following settings on screen here. So as you can see, it is now doing the typical snake X pattern, except it resets by going to the corner rather than using field drift compensation with the sprinkler. You know, actually I was wrong. There's one more, it's called Slimline. We do not have a picture for this one, so let's just run it and see what it does. It is now planting the sprinkler. Okay, I see. So it sticks on one line and starts going back and forth, back and forth. Very straightforward. Quite literally. Now there is another one called stationary, but I shouldn't have to explain it. It puts down a sprinkler and it stays completely still while harvesting. Now let's go through a couple of the settings on here. So let's now go over the until area. So this makes it so that way it will go back to your hive after your backpack either reaches this limit or after a certain amount of time. So if I were to set this at 30 minutes and backpack to 95, it will return to my hive after 30 minutes, or if my backpack is at 95%. And you can change the method by changing it here. You can either have it walk to the hive, rejoin the server to get to the hive, or reset your character to get to the hive. I personally use walk. And now we have the sprinkler start location. This changes where it plants the sprinkler. And a distance. I would assume the distance is for the pattern and to see how far it goes. Now let's move to the collect and kill tab. The collect and kill tab is very simple, so let's go over it. On the collect and kill tab, you can set it to automatically collect the wealth clock and do all of these things. So, if you were to set it to to collect clock. Every time the wealth clock is available, it will collect it automatically. You can have it automatically collect robot passes whenever they're ready. Ant, this is meaning ant challenge. It can have it collect the passes, or auto run a challenge, I believe this is. I've never tried this. And Mondo, auto runs buff or kill. I'm not quite sure what those are either. You guys are gonna have to let me know in the comments, because I do not use those. Now for dispensers, you can have auto collect certain dispensers. So if you want to collect glue automatically, treats automatically, stuff like that, automatically collect business things, you get the point. If I wanted it to collect stockings, feast, samovar, lid art, stuff like that. Now let's go to the bug run section. So you could have it to do all of these things, but before you want to change these settings, you want to change your monster respawn time using this right here. So essentially, you want to change your monster respawn time buffs according to what you have. So if you have a gifted vicious bee, you'll make it -15. If you have a stick bug amulet, you make it -10. Icicle bee quip, you change it depending on what you have on icicle bee quip. Then you put them all together if you have multiple. I don't have any of these except for gifted vicious, so I set mine to -15. Now over here, you can select it to automatically kill certain mobs or enemies. I could have it automatically kill mantis and spider, and have it only loot spider, stuff like that. So if you have a quest to kill like 100 rhino beetles, automatically kill rhino beetles whenever they're ready. And let's head right here. So you can have it to automatically kill vicious bee every time it's nighttime. It automatically detects that with some black magic, I'm not quite sure. But make sure to set the fields. Make sure that you actually have all these fields unlocked. If you don't have a certain field unlocked, make sure to just uncheck it. So that way it doesn't try to check that field whenever you don't own the field, you know? And then you can also have it automatically kill certain bosses. Now, I would recommend having Baby Love on, but only have it on if you have a Baby Love source, like a baby bee. Otherwise, it'll just sit there doing nothing, waiting for a Baby Love, but you don't have baby bees, so it's pointless. Now let's head to the boost tab. In the boost tab, you can make it automatically pick up the boosters. For example, the red booster, if I would set it on that, it would automatically go and collect the red booster up in the red HQ right over there. Or you could set it to blue or mountain, whatever. You could also have it set to automatically run your hotbar slots. So for example, if I wanted to run red extract every 30 minutes, I would have red extract in my second slot and have it activate whenever we're gathering every 30 minutes. And you can also set how long between each boost for the field boosters. So you could have it collect the red one, wait 15 minutes, then collect the blue one, wait 15 minutes, collect the mountain one. You could also toggle this if you want it to gather in that said boosted field. Let's head over to the quest tab. Now this will automatically run quests whenever you want to automatically run quests. Say you have a polar bear quest, you want to run that quest, whatever, you just click this, make sure allow gather interrupted enabled, and change these to your preference. So if you want to, I would recommend changing this a bit higher than 5 minutes, maybe like 15, 20. That means it will gather in said field that it needs you for the quest for 20 minutes before it returns to doing it to gather. Otherwise, or if you only want to run the quests, set this like an hour, whatever, however long it would take for the quest. Now, for Black Bear, you must have all of the main quests for it completed, all the main quest line, and you must be on like the end randomly generated quests. It does warn you here, but I feel like I should let you guys know anyway. That's over the Planters tab. In the new version, the Planters tab has had a complete new rework. So before, this is Planters Plus. So let's go over this first before we go to the manual tab. So, you could set a preset. For example, I'm a red hive, so I'll put on red. And then it would automatically collect planters in the best fields to get the best amount invigorating, refreshing, stuff like that to help boost your red pollen. So make sure to set the planters that you want to use. So like red clay, pesticide, tacky, stuff like that. And also, if you press F5 on your keyboard, you'll pull up this menu right here, showing time on all of your planters. It gives you all the info, how long to your next under bear, ground bear, forget what it's called, tunnel bear, yeah, the werewolf, the king beetle, stuff like that. Now let's go to the manual tab right here. This is quite a bit more simple, I'd say. So these are different selections for your, here I'll give an example. Say you want to plant tacky and stump. This is what it'll do. As S1 planter, the first thing it'll do, it will place the tacky planter inside a stump field. Then right after that's planted, it'll place a pesticide and pepper. Right after that, it'll do blue clay and pine tree. Now for the cycles, these are slightly different. After this one is completed, after tacky and stump has been harvested fully, it will now cycle to tacky and pineapple instead, rather than tacky and stump. Then after this, it'll just cycle back here. If you do not have a second cycle, as right here in S2, it will just keep on looping right here. Also, make sure to set this to full, so that way it harvests them whenever they're full instead of after a couple hours. So we are going to skip the status tab for now. We'll be right back there. But first, let's go to the settings tab. In here, make sure to set how many bees are in your hive. I have 46, so I'll put it as 46. Let's head to my hive just to confirm. 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45, 46. Make sure to have it your hive slot. If you're not in the game, then you activate the macro, it will automatically set this. But if you're in the game before you run the macro, make sure to set that to your hive slot. And right here, you can set it to wait a certain amount of time after converting your balloon or converting your honey. Just make sure that all of that gets fully converted. Let's keep mine at 10, because I just feel like it. Now, character settings, make sure to have this enabled. I don't know why you wouldn't want to have this enabled. It just makes it so that way, like haste, makes it so that way, here, you can just read it here. So make sure to set your movement speed. You can do so by going to System, scrolling down through here, and move speed right here. Make sure you have no boosts active, so I'm just going to run around, make sure I don't have haste or any bear morphs active. Now after doing so, you can see my move speed is 33.6, and my move speed is 33.6, so you'll want to input that right there. Then you want to set your sprinkler type. I use Supreme, so I'll set this as Supreme. Your move method, you can have it to either walk to the field or use a cannon. I personally recommend cannon, but make sure you have enough bees to use all the cannons. Now we have the convert balloon. This automatically converts your balloon every set amount of time. Or you could have it always do it whenever it can, never do it. But I personally have mine to convert it every 15 minutes to get the maximum balloon blessing when macroing. Now the reconnect settings, I just put in my VIP server link right here. Then make sure to have fallback to public server on if you're using a private server. That will make it so that way if you're trying to connect to your private server and it won't let you connect after a couple attempts, it'll just throw you into a public server instead, so you can still actually macro. So now let's head to the status tab from what I skipped earlier. The status tab gives you all the information from your macro, everything that's gone on about it, etc. But the main thing about this is a Discord webhook feature, so let's show you what that does. The Discord webhook feature lets you have a Discord webhook that posts all info about what your macro is doing, so you can be updated on it. It can also send screenshots of what you're doing. So like if I were to scroll up here, it'll log everything, it'll give me all info for it. Let's then scroll up a little bit higher. And every hour it will post a graph showing all of your info. So I'm going to find that graph real quick. Here's one right here. It shows how much honey per second you're making, your honey average, and how much you've gotten the last hour, how much you've gotten in total session, all your planters, your stats, all these graphs right here for like your abilities and stuff. It's very useful. I will show you how to use this now. So as an example, I will create a new Discord server as a test. I'll just call it test server. And then you are going to want to press the name up here in the top left. server settings. Press integrations under apps, webhooks, create new webhook. Click on it. It should be named Cap and Hook or something like that. I'm just going to rename it to macro. Then you're going to want to copy webhook URL and paste it right here with the link full address. Make sure Discord webhook is enabled. And then if you want screenshots, like the screenshots will post screenshots of what you're doing. So if you pick up stockings, it will show you the loot you got from the stockings on a screenshot, and it'll post in the webhook. So if you want that, make sure to toggle this right here. Now that is going to be it for this advanced tutorial. If you found this video useful at all, please let me know in the comments. Let me know if I missed anything. Let me know if you need me to explain anything to you better, or you just want to know something else. I will likely comment, trying to give you as much info as I can. And please leave a like and subscribe. I put a lot of effort into the videos for you guys. I'll see you guys next time. Bye bye.